we've all been there when we have just a bug or an error in our code. And when that happens, we often need to shift into debugging mode, i.e. trying to figure out what went wrong. But for really tricky bugs, we might need to ask a friend or go online to some online forum to try and figure out the answer. However, with the rise of AI tools, a lot of these traditional programmer Q&A forums have been in decline. And this doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but what I'm worried about is this. Are we losing our critical thinking? By only copying and pasting our error messages into the ChatGPT prompt, are we really practicing problem solving, or are we just copy and pasting stuff into a terminal? So I went online to find different debugging strategies to help me stay active and involved in the coding process when I found something called rubber duck debugging. And just as the name suggests, it involves having a rubber ducky with you that you explain your code and your errors to, and through the act of explanation, hopefully you actually just come up with the answer yourself. However, there might be a problem when you are really stuck and speaking to the duck doesn't really move you forward. And that's why today we will be building an interactive debugging duck. It's time for you to learn how to speak, buddy. So to do this, we'll need a couple of components. The first thing is to use Uber's speech recognition, which basically does two things: record audio from the microphone in real time and transcribes that audio. And to transcribe the audio, we're using OpenAI Whisper, which is a sequence-to-sequence machine learning model that can take audio and turn it into text. Then we'll take this text and feed it into GPT-4o to produce a response about how we can go about actually debugging our code. And finally, we'll use a TTS library to take that text and turn it into speech. So let's see what we come up with. Alrighty, so here we are in VS Code, and the first things we're gonna do is just import the speech recognition, the OpenAI, and the TTS. And then we're using PyDub here to play the final audio. First of all, we're using the GPT-4o model and creating a new client. Then we're also importing our TTS model for turning the generated response back into speech. And this is the main loop that we're doing. So we're creating a new recognizer object, then using with the speech recognition.microphone, and then we're using the r.listen for the sound. Then we're using the Whisper model to turn this into text, and we're printing out what we heard and what we're coming to respond. And finally, we're calling the GPT-4o mini model using the ChatGPT client completions API, where we just have a system prompt to guide how we want to do this, and also just inputting our text right here and returning the response. And finally, we're generating the audio version of the response and playing it using this function right here. Okay, so let's see if we can do this. All right, I'm having a really hard time structuring my GitHub project, making it up to speed with standards in the field.
Focus on organizing your project with a clear directory structure, e.g. circ tests docs. Include a read with project details, set up a license file use. Git ignore to exclude unnecessary files, and consider a contributing guide for collaboration. Ensure consistent coding styles with linters or formatters.
All right, so that's the first prototype, but I still don't find that it speaks like a duck, so let's see if we can do that. So to do this, I'm gonna try and use voice cloning. And with our TTS library here, we can actually give a sample of a voice and try and generate audio in the style of that voice. Now I went online for BBC audio effects, and this is kind of what we had for my ducks. And let's see what it generates. Okay, this is our generated audio using the ducks. Let's see.
I'm a duck, but I probably know more about coding than you. Happy to have watch.
I don't know if I really enjoy that voice. Maybe it needs some more tweaking. All right, so there you have it. All the code will be available on GitHub, and you can use this project as a startup for assistants or for any other applications that you can think of, combining text to speech, speech to text, and using model calls in between. All right, hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching.